So with A.K.I being out on the market for more than a week now, it's pretty safe to say that people understand what she's capable of. Now, are you one of those people who just can't seem to get everything right in a matchup? You just seem to be struggling in spite of all the training you put in with A.K.I? Well, not to worry. In this video, we're going to go over 3 reasons why you're losing with A.K.I, so let's get straight to it. All that being said, if you enjoy educational content like this on the channel, then be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get straight to the first point. So one of the main reasons why you're losing with A.K.I primarily comes down to your neutral and how predictable you are. I've watched and coached and analyzed a lot of A.K.I players' gameplay recently, and the main culprit really comes down to your neutral. A.K.I's tools are quite negative on block, which means that you have to really understand and be alert to recognize that it's no longer your turn after specific block strings or after specific moves. So for example, if you're using your roundhouse into heel strike block string, that's unsafe. Why? Because the enemy can DI in between the animation of your roundhouse and your heel strike, whether it be on drive rush or just a regular block string in general. You'll see on screen here with JP as an example that you can punish it very easily. And a lot of times, very often rather, I see a lot of A.K.I players use this very same block string to apply pressure, and no one's really punishing you. But at the highest level, they will punish you. They will take advantage of you. So you need to recognize when things are not working to stop what you're doing and think of new ways to apply pressure in neutral. You're too one-dimensional in your neutral approach to where you think that using your OD Serpent slide, for example, or OD Cruel Fate, for example, can net you results. But a lot of those moves, again, can be easily telegraphed and can be punished if you're not careful. Your OD Cruel Fate, for example, can be perfect parried, and in the example of JP, he can easily just OD Amnesia you after a perfect parry and go for a free combo. So these are just things you have to recognize again and really study carefully and think of ways to maintain safe control, safe pressure in neutral, because you have safe options. You have the likes of your Nightshade Pulse. You do have your Serpent Lash, your OD Serpent Lash. You have really good tools that you can use to apply pressure, but just being very careful about how you use it, and again, not being too predictable, because again, a lot of your tools can be DI'd. That is one of the caveats with A.K.I, is that a lot of her options can be DI'd, so this really encourages you to apply pressure in the most safe way possible. So that's the first point. Think of ways to not be so predictable, be unpredictable, think of safer ways to approach, and from there you can see more results down the road. That being said, let's move on to the second point. Reason number 2, you are just too overly aggressive. You think that because you have a life lead, you think that it's the best time to finish things off and really put the pressure on the enemy when they're down. But lo and behold, that is exactly what causes you to die, because you're now basically going back to the first point where now you're being too predictable. You're being too one-dimensional in your aggression, and the enemy is able to adapt to it and basically turn the tides in their favor and kill you. So while you had a significant life lead, now it's all gone because of wasted potential. And you'll see this quite frequently. I've seen it very often where, again, A.K.I players want to push themselves in. They want to go for that OD snake step. They want to, close the gap, or they want to go for jump ins too often. And you don't realize that by using up all of your meter to do all of these moves that will ultimately either put you in a bad position or you close the gap, but you weren't supposed to because you really want to be trying to zone the enemy out. You have a life lead. There's no need to try and be aggressive and poke and do all these things. You can just throw your Nightshade Pulse out, throw down a Orchid Spring to force the enemy to come to you. So instead of you going to them, force the enemy to come to you. You don't need to play too aggressively to the point where you're giving up real estate only to lose it and ultimately lose the match. So this is really one habit that you need to fight off, is when you have a life lead, sit on it. This is like quintessential fighting game 101. You have a life lead, sit on the lead. You don't have to be too aggressive. You don't have to try to close out the game, close out the match. Let the opponent do the work for you. You've done all the heavy lifting already. You've already applied your pressure in neutral. You've already established a good lead in life. So why are you trying to continuously go in with all these block strings or these setups, but then all of these things ultimately lead you into getting perfect parried or DI'd, and then you're frustrated. And what happens when you get frustrated? You get even more impatient. You get even more one-dimensional, because now you're losing all of that momentum because of your carelessness. So in the end, try your best to just settle down. When you have a lead, don't become too greedy. Let the enemy hang themselves. You have all of the control in the world. Use that opportunity to really slow down and think about new ways during the match. Don't throw the match. Really, really think carefully. That being said, let's move on to the last and final point. Reason number 3 is fake pressure. So what does that mean exactly? Well, when you pressure something, you're exerting force upon that certain thing in hopes that there's a reaction coming from it. So, for example, if you're applying pressure to the enemy and it's real pressure, that enemy is going to want to back away because they're too afraid, knowing that if they press a button, they're going to get punished for it. Whereas fake pressure, your block strings aren't necessarily real. They're not scaring the enemy, and as a result, you're just giving the enemy an opportunity to strike you because there's nothing to be afraid of. So this is where fake pressure comes into play, where your block string isn't even a block string. You'll drive rush in and you'll do one move off of a drive rush in hopes that the opponent will do something, but that's not scaring them. So of course they're going to respond, and they're likely going to respond with something of their own that's going to scare you, and then it's going to force you to now play passively because you don't know what to do. So you need to really think of creative ways to apply real pressure through strong block strings, strong combos in terms of reacting. So by reacting, I'm talking about scenarios where you are predicting the enemy's movements and you are whiff punishing them, for example. And because you whiff punish them, now they're going to be afraid to press a button against you because you've applied that real pressure to now they have to second guess what they need to be pressing. Or let's say you whiff punish them and you go into a really big combo that takes off a good chunk of their life. Now they're thinking, oh damn, I can't whiff punish this move anymore, otherwise I'm going to take even more damage. So this is really where you have to start thinking, okay, are my block strings good enough to scare the enemy? Does my opponent respect me enough based off of my real pressure? Because if I'm doing fake pressure, it means that my opponent is not afraid of me, and I'm giving them even more incentive to play aggressive against me, and now I'm the one having to block. So just think about that for a moment. Ask yourself whenever you're playing, am I applying enough pressure to where the enemy has to back away and reassess their game plan? Or am I the one on the receiving end because of my fake pressure? I'm not doing enough and my block strings aren't really true, so I'm getting punished, DI'd, drive parried, drive rushed even. So these are the thoughts you must consider when you are applying pressure in every single matchup. Doesn't matter whether you're facing a Kami or a JP or Ryu or even a mirror match. Just try to think of ways to be creative and applying consistent pressure to the enemy to where they're forced to make a decision which will work in your favor. So all that being said, I do hope that these reasons have given you some insight as to why you're losing. If you enjoy the content, as always, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to take part in one-on-one professional coaching by yours truly, then be sure to check out the link in the description. And until next time, as always, new warriors, stay strong and keep fighting. Peace.